Here's the story of a lovely lady who was bringing up three very lovely girls. All of them had hair of gold, like their mother, the youngest one in.
All right,
Keith,
well, it's
I'm
up to
going to
you,
refer to
honestly.
you as Agent K
Your
this
thing.
episode.
Yes,
Agent K, I'm fine with that.
or Agent K.
K and J. Oh my God, yeah.
K and, well, there's two J's and
Two J's.
I mean, what are you?
Greg, you're Zed. Sorry.
Zed. I love
You're
Zed.
Zed. Well, I mean, that would be fair.
Not in this. Zed was more of the Charlie in this. Okay, let's talk about this comment.
I have to turn my mug the other way so that everyone can see my
I had my coffee already.
There you go.
That is on every Bullshit Hour episode ever. So,
At least you're consistent.
But the
I am
listeners don't
consistent.
know that.
Yeah.
the listeners don't know that because they don't see it. So we can lie once again about what's on my mug, just like we did on the first comic episode that we did. Anyway, all right. So, I guess I should say what we're talking about first before I say who's talking about it. We're talking about the first Men in Black comic. There were a total of 6, and the first series, like the arc, was 3 issues in 1990, and then they made another 3 in 1991, which I haven't read. I only read the first 3. So it's the first story arc of Men in Black from 1990, and I'm sorry to Mackley, because I don't know who wrote it. I don't know who had what to do with it.
Lowell Cunningham.
Okay, well, you saved it. So today, to talk about the first ever Men in Black story arc, the first of 2, we have our special guest, Mr. Greg Vorob. How are you doing, Greg?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great.
All right. And we have Jason Gurin.
Hey, folks. Agent J reporting for duty for Men in Black.
Excellent. Beautiful. And we have Keith, who just a moment ago was holding like the Taco Bell dog.
My Chihuahua.
The Chihuahua.
Chihuahua.
What's up, Keith? How you doing?
Not too bad. And I guess due to the topic at hand, you can refer to me as Agent K for the rest of the episode. Just,
All right. You'll be
fittingly
K.
enough.
So, I mean, you know what? I guess that Jason and I can both be J, but, you know, he'll be JG, I'll be JS. That's how we distinguish ourselves from the whole thing.
That's her.
All right. So,
Agent V. We'll just do Agent V for me.
yeah, you'll be Agent V. You'll be you know, we all like the V. Everyone here likes the V. So, anyway, so
That's another show.
I'm getting a lot of faces here. Keith, you look confused.
I'm always confused. You should know this by now.
That's true. That's true. All right. Well, so as pretty much with any topic that we've discussed on this show, with like a couple of exceptions, I never read the comic before I came up with the idea to do an episode about it. So we are here talking about this 3-part comic of Men in Black. And, you know, I thought, okay, it's going to follow a story arc. And really the only arc that I would say it follows is the fact that it's Jay. Jay is the one who joins the Men in Black. Like, it's basically just him, I guess, easing into the team, right? Like, that's kind of the only arc I would say. But, you know, like, along the way, they experience aliens. And I think that's the story, right? I mean, am I missing anything? I guess we'll go around and we'll see if anyone's missing anything, and then I'll put in my 2 cents after the three of you talk. So, had you read this before, Keith?
No, I have actually not. This was the first go around with the Mad Libs version of Men in Black because I read this and it reminded me of the old Mad comic book or Mad magazine, that art style. And all I was
Mad Magazine, okay.
expecting, yeah, I was expecting one of those Mad characters like the Salt and Pepper guys come jumping out and throw bombs at each other behind something or something or other.
Spy versus spy.
Yeah, the old Spy versus Spy. I totally expected
Mm-hmm.
a little Spy versus Spy jab. Just for, if no other reason, it had that kind of art style and kind of like the weirdness from the story. So this was just like my first go. I had always assumed for some odd reason that this was going to be like a Dark Horse comic or Image or something, not like this popcorn kind of story. So I was kind of it was an interesting read for me the first time around.
Okay. So that's Keith's 2 cents on it. Let's go to Greg. Greg, what did you think about it? Having, and forgive me for speaking for you, but having just watched the trilogy, like the movie trilogy, that's the reason that I asked you to come on to this episode. So, what did you think about these comics?
Yeah. Yes. I didn't know. I shared that I rewatched the Men in Black movies, starting with the first one. I actually never saw the second, third, and International. I watched International too. And damn it, it got me on this show by mentioning it. So I don't know whether that's a good thing or bad thing. What did I think of these comics? Well, I spent years thinking that I didn't like the Men in Black film. It is now not true, now in a reevaluation of it. And just like Keith, I had heard that the Men in Black comics were darker, and I'm using a very extreme word, superior in some ways. I did hear that they are complete and utter, not only aliens as we see in this comic, there is a demon too, that they also hunt demons. They all paranormal stuff, sort of like it's an X-Files type thing, more so than the Men in Black, what we got of the movie. I was enjoying it until I wasn't anymore. I was taken aback by the fact that it was not a story arc, that it was in fact Jay accumulating, and then I'm like, oh wow, they did make a better story structure when we first met them in the films. Wow. I had heard dark. This is not dark. I had heard interesting. Well, to be honest with you, it starts off with this drug cartel that I thought we were going to find out were aliens, and they never quite said whether or not this was aliens. It just was the way to get Jay in, because he was investigating this drug cartel, which I'm assuming had something to do with aliens, or Kay wouldn't have been there. That was very interesting, and I was looking forward to issue 2 and 3 on tying all of these plots together, and of course was very disappointed when they were not. So that's what I would say about it. And then the last thing I would say is I probably made the mistake of having expectations for it to be good and exciting, and I don't know, it just wasn't. I mean, it held my interest all the way through, and I skimmed it before I read it all through much earlier today, because I always like to be fresh with comics. Especially I have to be fresh if I'm going to be discussing it. And I remember receiving it weeks ago or whatever and skimming the first part of the drug cartel, and I'm like, this is really exciting. This might be my favorite. This is going to turn out to be, of course, jinxing myself, my favorite comic that I ever talked about on Hour of Comics. And of course, it just turned out to be what it is. So my thoughts are very much with Keith's thoughts. And I would say that it was weird and a disappointment in terms of it being built up for so many years, going, well, you got to read the Men in Black comics. Maybe later Men in Black comics were good, but this really didn't leave me.
There were a total of 6. That's it.
Yeah. This didn't leave me wanting more.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you're talking about how it started with him, going to the drug cartel, and they had this crazy drug called Berserk, because that's what it does. It turns you berserk, and it's like clever. They spelled it slightly differently, and he's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go do my investigating here. It did sort of remind me, and Jason, I'm sorry, we'll get to you in just a moment, but like it did sort of remind me of like the opening scene in the Men in Black movie, where you just see, I think his name was Edwards, like before he joined Men in Black, and he's actually a police officer. He's on the force, and he's like putting his life at risk to chase this guy down, and he's like, nothing can stop him. And I'm like, okay, so they basically they exaggerated that for the movie, but we're gonna get more into it because Kay is, I'm never gonna get it right. Kay is telling Jay to go to this thing and like, oh, be sure you have your flashy thing with you. And then he's like, oh yeah, by the way, I knew that anyone on Berserk would not be susceptible to the flashlight. So he's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And I'm like, okay, well, where's this going? It's going nowhere.
Yep.
And we're just going to start the next story. I'm sorry. Okay, Jason, go ahead.
No, I mean, I watched the movies back in the 90s. I watched the first 2. And at the time, everybody was like, oh, you got to go and find those comics. And like Greg said, like, oh, they're dark and all that. And I mean, I never read them before. This is my first shot. And I kind of found them just goofy. Like, I mean, I didn't hate it, but it was just, it was just a fun read, I guess. But the plot was a little thin. I didn't like that each issue really didn't connect to each other other than just moving Agent J along. It was just, I don't know. Maybe the next 3 keep that plot going, but I don't even know if I want to go there at this point.
Maybe yes, Greg.
I found I was going to call them by their actor names. Kay, Tommy Lee Jones' character, was less cynical than the Kay in the film that we got. But this also explained why David Schwimmer was in consideration for the movie before Will Smith was, because he was kind of like a little goofy and not like so cool and calm and collected or whatever. He was a damn good agent of I guess he was in the DEA is what they established there. I might be mistaken, but I did.
They said he was in the DEA.
Yeah, there was a lot of like, I'm like, oh, okay, I could see how this could have been David Schwimmer. It's like, oh, that flashy thing. Why you keep flashing these people?
They could have done more with a story with that too. Just, that he's this DA agent coming to the drug thing. And I mean, they just gloss over everything. And I really wanted those drug guys at the end to like take their heads off and be lizards on them.
Yeah.
Like, come on, where's
come back around. But it was like the introduction to this entire story had nothing to do with aliens. You're just like, we're like, oh, we're trying to prevent this drug from being distributed because, it's the most powerful drug of all time. And it turns people berserk and makes people unstoppable, but it doesn't turn them into aliens. It just turns them into that. And it was
basically just a test for Jay to join Agent K.
Yeah, pretty much. And so I'm like reading through this, and I'm saying, I'm making my comparisons, and I'm thinking to myself, if this hadn't been a movie, I would have very little interest in actually continuing and finishing all 3 issues, because I'm like, I'm looking through the issues, and it's like every now and again you'll see something that was used in the movie. For the most part, it was like the movie was its entirely own entity. It was like, like they had this thing. Aliens were sometimes good, they were sometimes bad. For the most part, they're good, but sometimes you get the bad ones.
The second part,
the second part, when
Oklahoma people,
when the alien crash landed on the guy's farm, I was like, okay, here we go.
Yep.
This is going to be like, okay, this is where the movie got their idea, but then, I mean, it's not the comic's fault, obviously, but the thing crash landed, and the guy said, "You can have my gun when you pry it out of my cold dead hands," which Vincent D'Onofrio uttered in the movie, and the alien was like, "That is acceptable," which we later find out just means the alien is going to wait until the guy dies of natural causes. And he's like,
it gets lost in interpretation very quickly.
yeah. And
See, goofy.
he's like, "Oh, we had a spoken contract. I'm waiting." He's like, "I'm returning every 24 hours to see if he's died yet so I can get his gun." And he didn't even want his gun for destructive purposes. It was just like the queen bee or whatever it was. It was like, "Oh, we collect weird things from other planets. And if you
Shiny
come back
stuff.
empty-handed, right? And if you come back empty-handed, we get killed." So the guy's like, "Here, take my gun without the bullets." And the alien was like, "Thank you very much." Left. And that was the end of the story. I was like, that is the shittiest end of a story I have ever seen in my life. Why did I just read this?
And yet, issue 2 was my favorite of the 3.
The second
Yeah,
issue.
I could see that.
Yeah.
The second issue was
Yeah.
definitely the stronger of the two. Well, if it makes you guys feel
Still
any
the
better,
first.
Yeah.
I skimmed through the second story arc, and it's not that much better.
Oh, really? Okay. I mean, I don't know if that would necessarily make me feel better or not better. That's a very neutral thing for me. But I did want to make mention of one thing. Like I said, it's very like the movie took very small things from the comic to kind of like make the connection. And one thing that I noticed that the movie used was when he like hypnotized the people. He said, "That wasn't a UFO you saw. Swamp gas from a weather balloon was trapped in a thermal pocket and refracted the light from Venus." I was like, that is like the one thing that they took from the comic to use in the movie. And I was like, oh, well, all right, at least they used something. The names, the farm, and K and J were basically like it.
Zed
I don't
was
think we
only
ever
a
really met
voice.
Zed.
Yeah.
Was that? Yeah,
We
Zed was
heard
only a
Zed,
voice.
but we didn't meet Zed.
He wasn't Rip Torn.
Nope.
No.
Well,
No,
you know
but
what got me was the first time I was reading through it, I was kind of just perusing, and when he uses the flashy lighty thing, as we always they joked about in the movie, I thought he was throwing a glass of water at him because the art style was so comical, for lack of
Yeah.
a better term. I was like, wait,
Mhm.
what is happening? And then I went back and read it and was like, oh, that's the mind wipe weapon.
The
Oh,
mind,
okay,
the mind
that's
device. Yeah.
the mind device. It looks more
Or
like
whatever.
literally a flashlight, and he's just like trying to blind him. And then, of
Mhm.
course, his comeback was like, well, they're not called Ray-Bans for a reason. You're like, that's the best you can come up with. That, like,
Yeah.
okay, you clearly have not had friends in a while.
And that weak ass story was the best you could come up with. Yeah, okay. Anyway, yeah. I thought upon reading, like, before I started reading it, I thought because what I had heard was that it was dark and it was violent and it was much more like, I don't even know where I heard this, but what someone said was that they don't use a mind wiping device. They use threats of violence toward people who had seen aliens. So it's like they don't actually wipe their memories. They just threaten them with violence. That might have happened in like a spin-off comic, but it certainly did not happen in this. So yeah, I don't know. I got excited and then there was suddenly not much to be excited about.
I think with that, I think back in the 90s or even late 90s, I think just the word was that if it was a black and white comic made by somebody other than Marvel or DC, it was dark.
Yeah.
And it was in black and white, so it was dark.
It was in black and white.
But it wasn't.
No,
The
I'm
black
with you.
and
I
white-
do remember hearing something about that. They're like, oh, this is like dark and gritty and everything. And for the 90s, it may have, but now that we're, several decades outside of that time frame you're reading, you're like, no.
Lighthearted.
I think, I think somebody pretended to read the Men in Black comic and said, oh, you got to read the comic. It's so much darker, but was making it up.
Yep.
And now we saw, and I mean, but to give credit where credit is due, People were saying the mood switched so much when it became a film. Not so much. In fact, they improved upon it.
Oh, they certainly did.
Yeah, instead of saying, "Oh no, you got to read the comic," it's no, you got to see the movie.
I did
I
think
agree.
that
Like
Agent K looked a little like Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah,
a little bit. I mean, honestly, all throughout the comic, the only way that I was able to distinguish J from K was the fact that K wears sunglasses. Other than that, they pretty much look identical. I'm like, come on, man, you couldn't have them look slightly different except for the sunglasses. But I mean, yeah, there was that. But yeah, was that you? Who was the one who said black and white comic books are interpreted to be dark? That was you, Keith.
No, Jason, I believe, or Greg said that.
You look like you were pointing at yourself.
No, it
He's
wasn't me.
pointing above.
He's pointing above. I mean, we got the whole Brady Bunch thing here going on. We're looking up in the anyway.
That better be
yeah,
our opening music, by the way. The Brady Bunch.
Oh, it's totally gonna be the Brady Bunch. Anyway, so the like original comic books that are like that, they're not Marvel, not DC, such as The Mask, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Those are independent comic books. Holy fuck! Have you guys read the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic books? Like from like the original, like
that's dark.
That's dark. I don't think
dark.
Shredder survived one issue.
He didn't
no,
survive
that's
the first
angry.
issue, no. And good god damn, man. The Ninja Turtles comic in the first issue, like 20 something people were murdered.
Oh yeah.
Issue.
And there's no pizza. That was added for the Saturday morning cartoon.
Right. There not being pizza was actually the harshest thing for me to come to grips with. I said, come on, man, where's the pizza? Where's the beef? And, same with The Mask where, although I guess the thing with The Mask, which we had spoken about previously, was that it was so goofy and so ridiculous that you are almost more disturbed by the insane violence just because of how clowny and insane it is, rather than just regular violence. It's cartoon violence, but not even funny cartoon violence. So I don't know. That's my way of comparing. And now you have these black and white comics with Men in Black agents who, what was it? It was Kay who said, aliens only come to Earth to leave something or to take something. That was the quote, and it was true. He never said that aliens are always bad, because these aliens clearly not bad. We just need something to bring to our queen. Okay, here you go. Take my gun. Thank you very much. You'll never see us again. So there was that.
Demons, on the other hand, a whole different story.
Well, yeah, you don't want them demons. Speaking of, we got part 3. That's where the demon comes in. And it's actually an evil demon. Finally, in 3 issues, we get a villain. There's no villain in the first 2 issues. What the fuck? Right? I mean, not.
Well, I guess the drugs would technically be the
drug guy. And I'm like, wow, I can't wait
guy,
to see that he's an alien, the drug guy. And of course, it was not.
He's not. It's just the drug distributor, which was like, you throw an egg at the wall as hard as you can, and then it stops right before it hits the wall. Like, that's what reading that first issue was like to me. And into the second issue. It's like, hey, why, man? But I did want to make mention of this before I forget. Part 3 seems to be a bit of inspiration for Stranger Things. Am I right?
I could see that. You mean where they're playing D&D and the demon?
They're playing D&D. Like the kid with the hat sort of looks like the weird goofy kid. It was like
Think about that.
No,
yeah.
that's a good point. I did not think of it that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't know. I mean, but it seemed to me that while I was skimming through it, as you were, Keith, while I was skimming through it, I just saw the D&D kids. I didn't read any of the dialogue, and I was like, oh, look, that looks like Stranger Things because they're always there. The one kid with the hat, and they're, you know, summoning spirits with their D&D game. I was like, that sounds like Stranger Things to me.
I love they gave one kid a Batman shirt, and you can see it's clearly a Batman shirt, but it's not close enough that they would have been sued by DC because it's a squiggle thing, just a squiggle, but it is clearly the Batman signal. It's a logo.
Outline of a bat. So I guess in part 3, we finally have the guy using his full-size gun to blast the fuck out of this demon spirit alien thing. And then Jay still doesn't like
and we're done.
Yeah. He's like, I'm a man in black, but I'm definitely not like you. And that was it.
I will say the one thing I would have liked to see maybe in the movie was in the first issue where he goes through the whole, like, you know, stick your hand on here and you're going to get access to all this stuff. I kind of would have liked that a little bit more. Not that what they did in the movie was terrible. I just think the cloak and dagger would have kind of, or suspense would have been a little bit better. Like you do this thing and then he drives you to wherever the hell they are in wherever the heck they are in New York, and then he's like, well, what's restaurant? Well, no, the one where he actually goes to get recruited.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, the wasn't that like the Holland Tunnel or
something like that? I wanted to say Waste Management because it made me think of Hellboy, but he goes and drives him there, and they're like, well, and then it starts kind of in that respect. I think that might have been possibly the only thing they could have taken from the comic books. Otherwise, this is one of those very rare instances that the movie is shockingly better than the story.
Yeah, they basically took the concept and just ran with it and created like this whole Men in Black industry. So you got to give them some credit just for coming up with the idea. But man, the movie people did it better.
Yeah, it really worked.
You got to understand that the Men in Black comic was really kind of its own thing. So they were like, hey, let's try a few ideas and, you know, throw it at the wall and see what sticks or whatever. And I guess nothing really stuck. And that's why the whole series ended after 6 issues.
Yeah, it was also put out by some random company that
Aircell, it was called.
Yeah. And then Marvel put out a prequel issue, and it was literally like 1 issue or 2 issues. To fill in, but again, it was the guys from the original story that weren't in the movie, so it's kind of like that. We're going to relate it to the movie, but not at all, and they're still going to be buttheads and hate each other.
I should add there were a couple of parts that I did chuckle. One of them being when the kid saw the demon and went, "Wow, this is such a cool game."
Yeah,
he just wasn't phased and went, "Wow, it's a cool game." Also, when Jay is trying to get out of the Men in Black headquarters, and there was this maze.
That was pretty funny.
That was pretty funny. I chuckled. I say pretty funny for lack of a better word because the rest of it's just
man.
But I mean, it was much better than that Star Trek comic that we just did in the season finale / last hour of comics.
Really much better, or like kind of on par?
I'll just say better. No, not on par. I will say better in my opinion.
So you're saying we won out by going to White Castle instead of recording the episode? Is that what you're saying? We won?
Seems that way.
Yeah, it seems like it.
Kudos for staying with canon, Keith.
Hey, look at that.
There you
go. It's like I thought of this thing on the fly or something.
Oh, almost as if. Yeah, when I started reading the comic, and it was a weird thing for me because I had made several attempts to actually start it before I was able to get into it. I probably tried it 3 or 4 times before I was able to get past the first couple of pages.
Wait, is this Star Trek or Men in Black? I'm just confused.
The Men in Black.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Well, Star Trek was
not
was
much
a different
better.
episode. So yeah. But yeah, I was trying to, and I thought, okay, maybe it's just because I'm tired. Maybe it's just because I'm maybe preoccupied with something. And then I come to realize after actually getting into it that it had nothing to do with any of that. And it was just not a very interesting comic. Now, like you said, Greg, better than Star Wars. Star Trek. What's the difference, right? No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding.
Now we're gonna get hate mail.
Now we're gonna get hate mail from all of my listeners. God, I got three of my listeners are on the show with me right now. So anyway,
I'll make sure that when we get off, I'm gonna.
Okay. Yeah, which one?
Yeah, which three? You know, we'll type really angry emails and maybe send it.
I listen to my own show, and then two of you, you can fight among yourselves.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah.
Whoever loses has to listen.
Does one really need to listen to a podcast if they've lived it? I don't know.
Ooh.
Well,
Megan all like meta and surreal.
So what happens to me frequently, and this is more of like a bullshit hour kind of comment, but you know, I don't give a fuck because it's my podcast, and what am I going to do? Sue myself? So no, what happens to me is that I will listen back to an episode that I did because, you know, I have to edit it. And then I'll say, oh, I didn't even realize that was said, because my attention span is so minimal that, you know, someone will talk for more than 12 seconds and then I'm in a different world in my brain, and that's just how it is for me. But yeah, that's why I do listen to my own show, because there's always things that I missed that other people say.
No, that's actually fair, because you're so focused on either the moment or what you're about to say that it turns into white noise where it's just like want, and then you hear Jason or Keith and you're like, oh wait, yeah, what's up? And then you know that's your cue to respond. So yeah, I could see that. I know I listened to one of the Undiscovered podcasts and was like, wow, I missed that point completely that so-and-so had said, or reference that Greg made, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, no, it does help. I hate the sound of my own voice, and as I've jokingly told most of you offline, I know I sound like Kermit the Frog, so I will never listen to my own podcast.
You're not even that bad. You're really not. I mean, like,
thanks.
I've heard some people sound like Kermit the Frog, and yeah, no, you have a podcast voice. So
yeah, I would have never thought that. No Kermit for you.
Kudos to you.
Now you just made everyone, every listener, every Keith Bliss fan go, "Ooh, you guys sound like Kermit."
All two of them, yeah. Mom and Dad, yay me.
Yes. Yeah. I was a little disappointed because I thought that these books, I thought there would be more to talk about in the plots and all that stuff. Most of what there is to talk about is how there is very little plot.
Yep.
Yeah.
It is very surprising. I'm with you that there was just, it was like a random Tuesday at the Men in Black headquarters. Like, okay, we're recruiting a new guy, and then we're going to bullshit and play cards. You're like, all right. You would think, you know, based on the movie, there was always some kind of craziness going on, and nope. They just hang out.
And in the film, the explanation for recruiting Jay was much more palpable. Is that the word? Than this just, hi, I'm recruiting you. I don't want to be recruited. Well, we've already taken your fingerprints and we've erased you. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you don't have a choice.
This whole comic series was, oh, okay.
Palpable is not the right word. I know that's not really the takeaway you're going for, but palpable is not the right word.
Plausible?
Or that it made sense in any way.
Yeah, plausible.
Yeah, no,
palpable means that you
can, very kind of like whatever.
All right, then do me a favor and cut that part out, which now I know he won't because I just said that. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't planning on cutting that part out anyway. I always have to leave in the parts where I'm a dick, where you say something actually meaningful and I say you used the wrong word. So, you know, that's on me, and I don't even give a fuck. So anyway, I guess there's not really much more to say about it. We've already been at this for 38 minutes, so why the hell not? Are you looking up at my clock at the top of my phone, Keith?
No, I have a clock on above my screen, so it's kind of funny that your clock is in the same place mine is.
Well, no, it's a cell phone clock. It's on the top left corner, just like almost everybody
over
else.
There that I didn't see, but yes, sure, we'll go with that 100%.
I'm like, you're like looking up to see the time on my phone.
I'm just gonna be like,
yeah. Anyway,
where's the end button? Over here? Nope. Down here.
if anyone has anything else that they would like to say about this comic, Greg,
If we're doing ratings,
sure, do a rating.
okay, 5.5 out of 10.
All right.
So it didn't even pass.
I mean, you know, if it gets good grades in other areas, then it will pass at the end of the day. All right. Anyone else have a grade or something that they would like to say?
So I'm going to go with the no comic book left behind grading scale, and I'll give it a 6.
All right.
Because it spawned a good movie, which is weird to say because normally we give comic books or movies crap about the comic books. In this case, it actually improved upon it. So I'll give it a passing 6.
I
Nice.
think it should be done on Happiness and Darkness. I don't think he did it on Happiness and Darkness.
I don't think so. We'll have to,
Yeah, you talked that with Nick. Yeah.
run it past it, Mr. DJ Nick.
If he wants to do it, I'd be interested in doing that episode since I'm doing this episode. It would be kind of an interesting thing to do if he wants to have me on. I mean, Jason?
Yeah, I think I agree with Keith. A solid 6 on it. Goofy book, quick read, but concept alone spawned a whole empire. So we'll give it a little credit.
I have to give it. I mean, so I'm forcing myself to think about it completely independent of the movie because that's how it was for several years before the movie came out. Now, I have a habit of giving multiple grades depending on, like why I'm saying what I'm saying. But as far as like when you read it compared to the movie, I would give it a 6. That's fine. Now, if there was no movie and I just read it, I'd be like, what the hell am I even reading? They start with really cool ideas and then they just kind of fall flat and they don't go anywhere, which kind of makes me want to give it not more than a 5. So, the some of the dialogue is okay. Some of the stuff is clever and funny, like the guy couldn't get out of the Men in Black headquarters. He was hypnotized, didn't remember it, but at least Kay admitted it to him that he hypnotized him. Kay in the movie said that he did not flashy thing Will Smith. So anyway, yeah, no, that's what I have to say. And we'll move on to plugs. I'll start with myself. My name is John Seymour, JonSeymour. That's how you find me on Facebook. There's a picture of me in a suit with my wife in a wedding dress. That is shockingly at our wedding. So that's me on Facebook. You can find me on the Hour of Comics is Upon Us, like you are right now. Bullshit Hour with John Seymour and its subsidiary. This podcast is Lamb Chops. And that's it for me right now. Greg, where do people find you?
Okay, you could find me on Facebook, Greg with 1 G, Greg. V is in Victor, Orob is in boy. And it is my default profile pic. I'm wearing a tux. I never had said that before, John, whereas you rightfully so tell people so that they know that they have the right John Seymour. This is so you know you have the right person. Find me on X at Greg_Vorob, same spelling. Find me on YouTube at Greg Vorob, where you could see my old All Things Random productions and me in action on acting. I've been saying this for like 2 years, there is a big surprise coming up on that channel very soon. And of course, Star Trek The Undiscovered Podcast. We just finished season 2, and there will be a season 3. That's Star Trek The Undiscovered Podcast. Find it where you can get your podcasts, except Apple now seems to stop carrying us. Okay, but we made up for that by now being on iHeartRadio. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Good Pods. You could find Star Trek The Undiscovered Podcast. But while we are on our off season, we are doing bonus shows. We just had a bonus show that dropped, and the next bonus show is Star Trek Day. It'll drop on Star Trek Day, September 8th, 2024, in case you're listening to this and found it in like 2029 or something. That is September 8th, 2024, and that will feature the debut of Hope on our show along with John. That is the Star Trek Day episode.
That's
coming up. That's our next bonus show. Yes.
All right. Jason.
You guys can find me on Facebook. Jason, last name is Gurin, spelled Gurin. Run a group over there called Comic Book Villains. Always a pleasure to have more people over there come and talk. And I recently joined Threads. I'm off Twitter, but I've joined Threads. And you can find me just at Jason Gurin, just one word.
Nice. And Keith.
Well, when I'm not here talking about comic books, shockingly, I'm on another podcast talking about comic books. So clearly I have, a very diverse set of podcasts, I think, maybe. You can find me on Happiness and Darkness, there you go. Happiness and Darkness, the superhero movie podcast. It's where we talk about any movies that are based on comic books, manga, webtoons, novels, whatever. We're pretty much open to anything. We actually just recently did a fan recommendation episode. You can find us on all major platforms of streaming. You can find me on Facebook. I am a squirrel riding a coffee cup, and it is Keith Bliss. And yes, I did that on purpose because everybody who knows me knows I'm slightly crazy.
Slightly.
I will be stepping away from this podcast. I've had some craziness go on in my life recently, and I need to kind of circle the wagons and take care of some stuff, but I will be popping up here from time to time, assuming the guys want me back, because I know all the shenanigans that are afoot coming up.
Sure.
But yeah, no, it was a lot of fun being with you guys. Yeah, I hope you guys all the best and you continue to grow the show.
Absolutely. And yes, we will. I will be sure to reach out to you from time to time as the shows get recorded, and I find perhaps there will be things that you are interested in, and you're certainly welcome to come back on as a guest anytime. If you approach me and say, "Hey, can we do an episode about this?" I'll say, "Sure."
So basically nothing's changing, really.
Yeah, really,
I'm
really.
leaving, but I'll be back maybe to talk about comics. And and it was a distinct pleasure for me to be on your final episode as a regular panelist. And this is a very bittersweet moment. And those were beautiful words you just spoke, Keith.
Yes,
and with that, I say my piece.
And we will certainly miss you. I'm trying out. I'm doing a Jeopardy type thing where I'm trying out other people to fill your panel spot. As of right now, I think Ken Radner sounds like he's pretty interested. We'll see how much time he actually has to do it.
You told me it was Blossom.
Blossom? You mean like Mayim Bialik?
I'd come back if she was co-host. I mean, just to say hi. Why not?
I'm actually going to get Ken Jennings on the show.
There you go. So
yes.
I'm going to pull a Greg Vorob card, and he'll understand the joke and reference when I get to it. So if you do any of the Ultimate Comic Universe, I will request myself be invited, just like Greg is our resident Batman individual we invite to most of our
right, but apparently I'm not. No, apparently
I said most of them.
I should have been invited recently, and I was not. And I realized I said I was stepping back while Star Trek The Undiscovered Podcast was in season, but I made it clear, okay, I can do a Batman one. They did a Batman one. I am bashing Keith and Nick here in all good fun. They did one that I mentioned I wanted to do. And see, they went ahead and pulled the what others have pulled in the past, but I deserve that. I completely deserve that.
Greg, you deserve all of the terrible
I
things
deserve
that
all that's coming to me. Exactly.
We'll make sure to include you on the next one, Greg. I'm not sure what it is, but we'll include it.
Is this Ultimate Universe thing like the Spider-Man story that you and Jason had just pitched to me recently?
It's a whole actual literal universe they got rebooted recently. But yes, the Spider-Man story.
Is that part of it?
Yes, Spider-Man, the Ultimates, Black Panther, X-Men. It's a whole, you guys can pick your poison. But yes, if you do get around to that eventually, let me know.
We'll stick with Spidey. That's the best one.
So far,
Yeah,
so yeah.
I mean I do intend to get around to that one eventually, but now that you've made this whole big emotional announcement about how this is your final episode, it would be a little strange to have you on the next one. So, we'll do like 2 or 3 and then have you back on.
The monthly visit, just be like, hey, I'm still alive, and
Like, hi.
They let me out of the asylum. I'm here to record an episode.
It's like on Saturday Night Live when a cast member leaves, but then comes back as a host, a couple of times.
Yes.
Yeah. All
He's
right.
trying to get out, but we're going to pull him right back in.
Right. Exactly. And on that note, Keith will still be you're still doing Happiness and Darkness, right? So we'll still be.
Yes, that is correct. I'm still doing that podcast. I'm just kind of focusing on one instead of spreading myself across many.
And that makes sense that you're doing the one that is far more professional than this one. So, this is
controlled chaos.
I mean, he has a British accent and he's Italian.
I know. So, you can't say no to Nick. And any of us that know DJ Nick, he'll ask us questions. You're like, yes, Nick, just 100% yes.
It's like, and well, on that note, Jason, Keith, and Greg Vorob. Pip pip shirt. No, I can't do it.
My people,
darlings. All right. Well, no, but seriously, on that note, I guess we can take this episode to a crash landing in the ocean. So, and then all of a sudden, the episode stops, and you check your car's speakers to see if they still work.
Fair.
And okay, so. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Yay!
Good night, Greg. Good night, Jason. Good night, Keith. Did I get all of you? Yes, I did.
Good night,
and good night. All right. And that was the most awkward final episode for Keith ever.
Well, you get that awkward silence. You're like, should I say something else?
You'll figure it out.
Yeah,
you're a good editor.
Yeah,
you'll figure it out.
I don't want you to give it all up and leave your own life collecting dust. And I don't want you to feel sorry for me. You never gave us a chance to be